Picture Britain in the 1950s. Streets still bearing the scars of war, young families dreaming of a better tomorrow, and a nation quietly falling in love with the motorcar. From cramped factory towns to leafy suburban avenues, the car wasn't just transport, it was freedom, pride, and possibility. Some of these machines became household names. Others quietly faded into memory. But every single one of them tells a remarkable story about who we were and what we dreamed of becoming. So settle in, because this is a countdown you will not want to leave early. And wait for number 1, it is truly legendary. Number 10, Vauxhall Wyvern. The Vauxhall Wyvern arrived in 1951, and for many British families stepping nervously into car ownership for the very first time, it truly felt like a genuine revelation. Built at Vauxhall's Luton plant, the Wyvern wore its American-influenced styling proudly, long, low, and surprisingly stylish for a nation still slowly rebuilding itself from the ravages of war. Beneath that gracefully curved bonnet sat a 1,508cc four-cylinder engine producing around 40 brake horsepower, which was perfectly adequate for navigating British roads that were still largely unhurried. The interior was modest but purposeful, offering families genuine space and comfort that smaller rivals simply couldn't match. Priced reasonably and backed by General Motors' considerable resources, the Wyvern earned a fine reputation for solid, dependable motoring that resonated deeply with cautious British buyers. It wasn't the most exciting machine on this entire list, but dependability mattered far more than excitement in post-war Britain. And the very next car took that idea somewhere completely unexpected. Number 9, Morris Oxford Series 2. If the Wyvern represented ambition with American flair, the Morris Oxford Series 2 offered something rather more quintessentially British, a solid, no-nonsense family saloon that asked no uncomfortable questions and answered every practical one. Introduced in 1954 from the famous Cowley plant in Oxford, the Morris Oxford wore its upright, conservative styling almost like a badge of national identity. Under the bonnet lived a 1,489cc B-Series engine that, while hardly setting pulses racing, delivered the kind of reliable, economical performance that suited a country still practicing careful household budgeting. The Oxford sold steadily throughout the decade because it represented exactly what its buyers needed: room for 4 passengers, a proper boot for the family luggage, and the reassuring knowledge that it would start on a cold Monday morning. Would you have considered one of these in 1954? Millions of British families did exactly that. But stay with us, because the next entry chose a far bolder approach to family motoring. Number 8, Austin A40 Farina. By 1958, something was clearly shifting in British car design. The old upright boxes were giving way to something far more continental, and the Austin A40 Farina announced that change with real confidence. Styled by the legendary Italian design house Pininfarina, the same people behind some of the world's most beautiful sports cars, the A40 Farina was a striking departure from everything Austin had built before. That long, clean roofline, those sharply defined fins, and delicate chrome details made it look like it belonged in Rome rather than Redditch. Powering it was a modest 948cc A-Series engine producing approximately 34 brake horsepower. It wasn't fast, but it was economical, easy to maintain, and genuinely attractive, which, in Britain's improving economy of the late 1950s, counted for a great deal. The A40 Farina sold well and introduced thousands of families to the idea that a practical car could also be beautiful. The next car, however, proved that practicality could conquer everything. Number 7, Standard 8. The Standard 8 may not be the most glamorous name on this list, but in 1953, it was exactly what an exhausted, budget-conscious Britain needed, and the public responded in remarkable numbers. Produced at Standard's Canley Works in Coventry, the 8 was designed from the very beginning to be affordable, simple, and easy for ordinary working families to maintain themselves. Beneath its modest, slightly Spartan exterior sat an 803cc four-cylinder engine producing around 26 brake horsepower, hardly thrilling, but genuinely adequate for the quiet roads and modest speeds of early 1950s Britain. The interior stripped away unnecessary luxury with admirable determination, though this was less a flaw and more a deliberate selling point in a country where household pennies were still carefully counted. For working families in Birmingham, Sheffield, and Manchester, the Standard 8 represented genuine emancipation, personal transport that was finally within reach. And if you think that sounds impressive, just wait until you hear what is coming next. Number 6. Hillman Minx. Few names in British motoring history roll off the tongue quite as pleasantly as the Hillman Minx, and throughout the 1950s, it rolled off showroom forecourts with impressive regularity too. The Phase Series Minx, updated progressively through the decade, was Roots Group's dependable workhorse, a mid-range family saloon that managed to feel rather refined without demanding a refined income. The 1390cc overhead valve engine introduced in later versions produced around 47 brake horsepower, giving the Minx an agreeable turn of pace that owners genuinely appreciated on longer journeys. Its styling evolved handsomely across the decade, eventually adopting the fashionable American-influenced lines that British buyers were increasingly drawn to by the late 50s. The Minx could be found parked outside suburban semi-detached houses from Surrey to Scotland, its chrome gleaming proudly on a Sunday morning after a thorough wash. Can you imagine seeing one outside your childhood home? Many viewers of a certain age certainly can. And this was only number 6. Number 5. Ford Consul. Step up in class, step up in ambition, and step up in sheer presence. That was essentially what Ford promised when the Consul arrived in 1951. Built at Dagenham on the River Thames, the Consul was Ford's confident statement that British drivers deserved something genuinely modern, and the public agreed with considerable enthusiasm. With its unitary body construction, independent front suspension, and McPherson strut setup, features still considered advanced at the time, the Consul was engineering its rivals could only admire from a respectful distance. The 1508cc overhead valve four-cylinder engine produced around 48 brake horsepower, which translated into genuinely brisk performance for a family saloon of that era. Styled with an elegant restraint that somehow felt both American and British simultaneously, the Consul attracted buyers who wanted sophistication without paying Jaguar prices. Over 229,000 examples were produced before its successor arrived, which tells you everything about how deeply Ford understood what Britain truly wanted. Something even more ambitious was coming. Number 4. Austin A35. When the Austin A35 replaced the AA30 in 1956, Britain's motoring public received it like an old friend who had quietly gone to the gym. Visually familiar but meaningfully improved, the A35 brought a larger rear window for better visibility, a revised grille, and, most importantly, an uprated 948cc A-series engine producing around 34 brake horsepower, compared to the AA30's rather modest offering. That seemingly small improvement transformed the driving experience significantly, making the A35 genuinely eager on Britain's increasingly busy roads. Built at Longbridge in Birmingham, the AA35 was compact, economical, and refreshingly simple to maintain, qualities that working families valued enormously in the late 1950s. The two-door saloon and estate variants meant it adapted naturally to different family needs, from young couples doing their weekly shop to families squeezing luggage in for seaside holidays in Devon or Cornwall. Over 280,000 were built before production ended. And yet, something even smaller and even more important was still to come. Number 3. Ford Popular. There has never been anything quite like the Ford Popular in British motoring history, and for very good reason. Introduced in 1953 as a stripped-down development of the pre-war Ford Anglia, the Popular was designed with one ruthlessly singular ambition: to be the cheapest new car available in Britain. At launch, it cost just £390, a figure so remarkably low that families who had never dreamed of car ownership suddenly found themselves signing paperwork with trembling excitement. Powering it was a side-valve 1172cc four-cylinder engine producing around 30 brake horsepower, which even by 1953 standards was considered old-fashioned. And yet nobody seemed to care very much. The Popular sold in staggering quantities throughout the mid-1950s, putting families on the road who would otherwise have spent their working lives depending on the bus. Subscribe for more stories like this, but first, stay for number 2, because the next car truly tells one of the most romantic stories in British motoring history. Number 2. Morris Minor. If any car defined post-war Britain's relationship with the motorcar, it was the Morris Minor, a design so honest, so cheerful, and so thoroughly lovable that it kept selling relentlessly from 1948 right through to 1971. Conceived by the brilliant Alec Isagonis, the Minor was genuinely ahead of its time, featuring a monocoque body, torsion bar front suspension, and rack and pinion steering that gave it handling characteristics most rivals couldn't come close to matching. Through the 1950s, the Minor grew in capability and variety. Saloon, convertible, estate, and van variants all found enthusiastic markets. The 803cc engine gave way to the improved 948cc unit in 1956, addressing concerns about performance with noticeable effect. By the end of the decade, well over 800,000 Morris Minors had been built, and in 1961, it became the first British car ever to reach 1 million units. A genuinely extraordinary achievement. But even the beloved Morris Minor couldn't quite match what is coming next. Number 1, the Mini. And so we arrive at the car that didn't merely top a sales chart, it rewrote everything the motoring world thought it knew about what a small car could be. The Mini, launched in August 1959 by the British Motor Corporation, was the final creative masterpiece of Alec Isagonis, the very same genius behind the Morris Minor. But where the Minor was gently revolutionary, the Mini was a complete explosion of everything conventional. Measuring just 10 feet in length yet carrying for adults in genuine comfort, it achieved this remarkable feat through a transversely mounted 848cc A-series engine driving the front wheels, a layout almost unheard of at this price. Priced at just £496 and 10 shillings at launch, it was genuinely accessible to ordinary British families. Nobody could have predicted it would define an entire generation, conquer international rallying, inspire the whole world, and ultimately sell over 5 million examples worldwide. Legendary is simply not a large enough word. And there we have it, 10 cars that captured the spirit of 1950s Britain in all its rebuilding, dreaming, and quietly determined glory. From the humble Standard 8 to the revolutionary Mini, each machine represented something far greater than simple transportation. They were the vessels through which ordinary British families discovered the extraordinary freedom of the open road. Which of these would you have chosen? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey back to the golden age of British motoring, please subscribe to Britain Rewind, because there are many more stories from Britain's remarkable roads to come.